Hello and welcome to another episode of How Are You Holding Up? A mental health podcast by the depressed for the depressed. I'm Chris.
And I'm Lindsey.
And we also have with us today our special guest,
James Scott, Jimmy Deloy.
Yeah.
Coming at you. Yeah, you remember this guy from that other episode.
Yep, we had him on for at least one other episode.
Thank you so much for joining us. I'm excited that you're here again.
Yeah, me too. I'm excited that Lindsey's here today.
Yay.
Last time I was filling in, and now it's just all three of us.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
So today on the podcast is a big one.
Yeah.
Yes.
This has been like a big request, not only from listeners, but we've been wanting to do this for a while. We finally got schedules to coincide. Today we're talking addiction.
Yep.
And we do want to have a little bit of a warning. If you're in a more sensitive spot or whatever, we will be discussing death, harder topics concerning addiction, how it affects your life with family members, friends, etc.
Mm-hmm.
Just wanted to throw out a little warning because we know sometimes you're not in the right spot for it.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
If you are family of us, or if you are friends of us, you will be hearing us talking about some rather difficult topics.
Yes.
So, also fair warning to that. The personal issues aside, this needs to be discussed because,
Yes.
my God, this is such a major defining factor of a lot of mental health issues.
Yeah.
Definitely. And I've got a dog that I'm petting right now. And if you're listening to this episode, I recommend going ahead and getting the nearest dog. Whether it's yours, a neighbor's, maybe going to someone's backyard. Sometimes there's dogs back there. Just put in your earbuds, sneak into a backyard, pet a dog, and listen to this.
It'll feel a lot better for sure.
So, boys, how are you guys holding up?
I'm holding up. You know, speaking of death, Thursday, not the Thursday that just passed, but the one before that, my brother passed away. And let me just tell you out there, if you are dealing with alcoholism, at some point, I recommend facing that issue because it can get very real and very final, very ultimate. My brother died of cirrhosis of the liver, and he was 40 years old. So, you know, way too young to go out. Yeah. He died of cirrhosis, and the cirrhosis... I think the cirrhosis led to cancer somehow, and the cancer eventually finally got him. But he had been drinking heavy for 20 years, I want to say.
What's cirrhosis exactly,
it's,
for those who don't know?
Your liver gets literally pickled, basically, by alcohol. Your liver gets to the point where it can't process anymore. And so it begins to harden and turn into, it shrivels, basically.
Yeah.
Okay.
And without your liver, you're fucked, you know. And about a year ago, my mom, he was living with my parents, drinking a bottle of vodka every single night, at least just the bottle, if not, beers on top of that. He weighed 110 pounds when he was doing this. So he was really, really getting into it, and they came home and he was all yellow and jaundice. So they brought him to the hospital and realized his liver is gone. Yeah. And he'd talk about addiction. They told him, if you stop drinking for 6 months and clean up, we'll put you on a list to get a new liver.
Yeah.
And he went about 3 weeks of not drinking, and then he said, fuck it, I would rather be drunk. And now he's dead.
Yeah.
Now he's dead.
He was probably experiencing the DTs and all of that nastiness that comes with it.
Yeah, and my brother had I think he wasn't quite sure what to live for rather than alcohol,
Yes.
It became the biggest part of his life, absolutely. And he is the third one in my family to die of cirrhosis. My grandfather, my uncle, and now my brother have died of cirrhosis. And he's the fourth one in my family to die of alcohol-related, because my basically adopted brother, my best friend growing up, was murdered at a bar while they were all drunk.
Oh my goodness.
I know. So alcohol is basically
this really
it's affected me in a very real way.
Yeah.
I'm a huge alcohol addict. We'll get into it, but the genes didn't skip me.
It's kind of amazing, yeah.
I'm looking forward to discussing your thoughts on kind of upbringing and having it around you and discussed versus just genetic lottery of addiction in general.
Yeah.
Is there anything you want to touch on, Chris, about how you're holding up?
I mean, I'm doing okay at this point. Like, I'm kind of, I've spent the last week being more or less on the mend, which has been a unique trial of experiences. Kind of that getting back on track of like, okay, kept going back to my diet style, going back to exercising in the mornings.
Yes.
Good.
I am sore AF.
Nice.
I have to say, I've seen a difference because your mood for a while there was really, it wasn't sad, it was apathetic and slightly angry.
Yep.
For a while. And then I saw you starting to turn that around, and I know that you have like some apps that you've been delving into and trying. And
Yes.
that is, I'm appreciative
so
to
good.
see you doing that
That's
on
really
for
good.
yourself.
The clouds have parted a little
Yes.
bit. There's some sun coming through.
Oh god, fuck that. But yeah, so one of the apps that I've been using is one that I've emailed the developers of because I would love to have a whole episode dedicated to their app in particular.
Great.
But it's just called Fabulous.
Okay.
And all it is it is a habit maker kind of app, which is interesting and something that we will definitely touch on.
Yeah.
Also in this episode.
Also in this episode,
Habits.
yeah.
Habits.
Forming habits, both good and detrimental,
Yeah.
are very much a part of us as people. So, starting off, let's start at the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
Should we discuss what addiction is?
Yes.
Yeah.
What is an addiction?
Yeah.
It is, I mean, I personally believe, I'm very much on kind of like the Dr. Drew team of addiction is an illness.
Me too.
It is not necessarily something that you get to choose,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
There is a lot of familial genetic implements.
I find it interesting because I feel like there should be a discussion of that and then how you can become addicted to basically anything as a human. For example, caffeine is a really good example. You can be really addicted to, your body gets addicted to it, and if you stop, you get a headache. And that is your withdrawal.
Absolutely.
And so when I hear people saying you can't get addicted to weed, I just don't agree with that.
Yeah.
Because your body can.
Oh, yeah.
But then you also get addicted to the ritual or the process. And, you know, and so that is like this whole other thing that I think just hasn't been discussed, the differentiations.
Rituals are a big part of my addiction. And it's funny because while I was an addict, I was one of the main people saying that you can't get addicted to anything, really. I didn't. But that was why I was heavily addicted to stuff. So I think I was just trying to justify it for myself. I'm not addicted, you know. I just do cocaine every single day. But
I did have to laugh. I was at a party not too long ago where somebody did offer like the group of people I was with cocaine.
Yeah.
With the tagline, "It's not addictive."
Oh,
I was like, "You, sir, are out of time."
That is like,
I think you just came out of a time warp from the 80s.
I think the hardest thing is there's this horrible stigma to addiction that makes people who have it or are around it not want to see it because it's too big of a word almost. Like you're an addict or addiction. It's not what you think it is. If you're living an addiction, it's not what people who don't experience it is. Does that make sense?
No, that makes sense. Yeah. Yeah, when you're in the bubble, you don't see it. You know, you don't think of yourself as an addict. And plus, the way that addicts are portrayed in the media is way you don't see. You know, I was waking up every morning and going to a job, and I was living a life. I was doing things that
friends, relationships,
and the whole thing. I was keeping up a whole life.
Yep.
But I was also heavily addicted. You know, and it finally began to affect all of that.
And it's usually, I would say 90% of the time, starts very slowly. And it's just doing a little bit every day. Or like, it starts with doing like on the parties. And then you start doing it when you go to your friend's house. And so then you're suddenly, you know, for example, simply drinking wine every day after work. And then you become used to, well, that's how I relax, is drinking. And once you start substituting coming down and relaxing on your own with a substance, all the time, that's where it starts to integrate.
Doesn't even need to be a potentially illicit substance. It could very well be something as simple as food.
Sure,
It could even be
absolutely.
something like exercise
Exactly.
can become an addiction. And
Yeah.
there's so many things out there that can just be there. I mean, the World Health Organization wants to say video game addiction is the thing, and I'm like, yes. But don't
create this weird
Yeah.
monster out
Yeah.
of it, because
Yeah.
you can do that with anything.
exactly.
And that whole like stigma of, oh, you do blow once and you're a crazy addict is very rare.
Yeah.
And that's why I think it's dangerous.
Yeah.
Because the media does portray it differently.
For sure. And I'll go back, I'll go back to the beginning with me. I was 16 in high school and I got my wisdom teeth taken out. And my dentist gave me just some like Percocets that were these like, and so I started taking those for the wisdom teeth stuff,
the painkillers.
the painkillers.
Right.
But then as soon as that was all out, I was like, okay, well, I definitely need more of those.
Why did you feel that way?
Because I felt like whenever I woke up in the morning and popped this Percocet, now the rest of my day I'm more social. I felt like I could do more. I felt like I don't know what it was, but it made me feel like I could do, and plus I was 16 years old. And so
You didn't have pain.
Yeah, I didn't have pain.
Yeah.
And I was playing football. And so I felt like I was playing better, which, probably not.
Well, to back up for a second, did you have depression in your teens?
Yeah, I did.
Most people do. A little bit.
Yeah, I definitely did. Definitely did. I lost my virginity at 12 years old, and it wasn't by my choice. The 16-year-old girl decided for me.
And so, well, that affects.
Yeah, and I think that definitely led to a lot of shit that I picked up. I got into a relationship that wasn't necessarily abusive, but she and I were extremely codependent when I was a teenager. And that led to a lot of depression, suppression, I would say, even more.
Lack of growth on your own.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I would say...
Percocet comes.
Oh, yeah, and Percocet
and you feel
comes.
great.
Yeah, yep.
And
now,
so, okay.
Yeah, and so that began... a lot of that, and then I drank a shit ton through college while still taking painkillers.
Wow.
And I continued that habit until 3-4 years ago. I was drinking and taking opioids.
Yeah.
Regularly. And then, so I've got this from college. I've got this like drinking and opioid thing, and then I move out to LA. And I start bartending at nightclubs in West Hollywood. I was bartending at one, and I discovered cocaine. I had a shift from 9 p.m. to 5 a.m. every night, and I was not used to that. Yeah, and some of the bartenders started doing blow in the bathroom, and I was like, maybe that'll help me. So,
and it's so normal. Like when you're seeing this all the time, and people are doing it, and
Oh,
you're seeing
yeah,
them on
yeah.
it. When you hear cocaine, you think, if you have never experienced it or been around it, you think of things that you've seen on TV where people are crazy and stuff. And literally, like a little bit of blow isn't like that you see people on it. It's like they had caffeine. They had a little bit of coffee. People a little bit more gregarious.
Yep.
It's not this like...
Yeah,
they're not suddenly drug monsters who can rip telephone booths out of like the floor.
Well, and the funny thing is with our group of bartenders we were all doing blow throughout the night while bartending. And I think what happens is whenever you're hanging out with a bunch of people that do cocaine, you don't realize if you brought one person in that was just bone sober on no drugs, they would say you are all fucking crazy. Like the things that you guys are saying to each other and the way that you're behaving right now, you just don't realize how it, but when you're, I got really swept into a cocaine culture.
That's a huge...
It fit hand in hand with my lifestyle.
Everyone's doing it.
Oh yeah, everyone's doing it. I was bartending. I was, in the first night, I felt like Superman. I did cocaine and it was like, I could make 100 drinks at once. It was
Feel great.
I was invincible. And I was 22, 23, and I was just ripping, ready to go. And I never wanted for that to come down. Like, that was the best feeling I'd ever gotten. And this is very controversial, but I don't regret, like, the first year that I did it, because I do think in a haze, I did have some clarity happen I began to realize the depression that I had been under since my teens. And I do honestly attribute a lot of that to cocaine use. I do. I mean, I'm not saying go out there and do it. That's just so happened to be a side effect for me.
Yeah, everyone has their own experience with stuff, and if you can find good out of an experience that could have potentially been really negative, then it created who you are now.
Right. But
well, it's that whole thing of like you take a lot in, and when you're on that kind of elevated state of mind, you are going to see things and feel things and think things that otherwise your cold stone sober brain is going to just go nope.
Yeah, so imagine you have depression and you're tired and you don't feel great about life and things are overwhelming and you have so much to do, and then you have the best antidepressant in the world in your system and you feel wonderful. Things don't affect you deeply emotionally, painfully. You feel like everyone likes you. You like everyone. You enjoy doing menial tasks. They become like entertaining for you and you feel good. And you feel a part of something with other people who are doing it. And suddenly you are this unit. And that's what I think cocaine is like.
Absolutely. And you hit the nail on the head is surface level feelings. I mean, that, there is nothing that will get to you on, I would say, the first couple of times doing cocaine. There's nothing that's going to hurt your feelings. It's all going to hit and bounce right off. And so I think I was able to think about some things that I wasn't able to think about before because now it doesn't hurt me as bad. It numbs you a
little bit from that.
But that being said, I would strongly advise not to go that course because you begin to want that feeling all the time. And I would say the first year of doing it, I was feeling great, and then immediately that was it. Like after that, it became you do start to all those feelings that you were pushing back. Now you do start to feel those, and now in a really bad way. And I'll just say, like, what it wound up being was about 3 years of cocaine every single day. And about half a bottle of whiskey every single night. To come down. And then that became 3/4 of a bottle of whiskey. And I carried this on while I was still on the opioids for the first few years.
And it's not like you're journaling it so you can see your change, right? With substances, it's not like you're seeing, like, wow, I'm doing a lot of cocaine every day and drinking a lot more alcohol than I used to. You don't.
This is the weirdest calorie counting I've ever done.
It just happens. And especially if you have friends who are also kind of engaged, like, hey, man, like, can I come over? You want to do some blow? Watch, like, a movie? And it's like, cool, It's... I don't know how to describe it for people who don't experience those kind of things, but I used to live in a house where that would happen a lot.
It just becomes normal life.
Alcohol for me was definitely that same route because I was killing a bottle of scotch at a party. Not even like a day, no, just a party. And so then the regular day to day was just like, nope, this is not the state I want to be in. Let me go back to that former state where I enjoyed who I was, and I also was very much... I became like this character I would call the storyteller, where I would just like gather people around me and I'd be like, I am going to tell you a story now that I'm going to make the fuck up off the top of my head.
And the wonderful thing about Chris is he can do this sober or drunk.
Yes.
But I bet you felt it more.
It was best because at that point, like, I would have like a lull in the story and I'd go, you, bring me another beer.
See, that's awesome. And that's one thing I do want to tackle in this episode is substances, like alcohol. I would never say don't drink. On Friday and Saturday these days, it's time for, I'll drink, but don't let it become an issue. If
it's something that you can't do responsibly or to a level where you don't get completely out of your mind, then it's a much more difficult scenario at that point because you've got something else to address.
So Chris, you've had you were saying you've had like alcohol problems, and James had uppers and alcohol problems, and I had a slew of different issues and was surrounded by them. A lot of people say weed can't become addictive, but I was in a situation with a boyfriend where I had a lot of bad stuff happen in high school, a lot of bad stuff with the family, a lot of disappointments in myself, and I got in a codependent relationship, and all the drugs were exposed to me through this relationship because he was a drug dealer.
Oh, okay. That's good.
And
get right to the source.
Yeah, exactly. So it starts off with just like weed, which I think in general weed is not a huge thing. Like, you can get too high, but,
Sure.
you're not going to really overdose.
Right.
You're not going to... And it can stop you from maybe advancing quicker in, like... It calms you down a lot, so it can kind of slow down your momentum because it relaxes you.
Yeah.
But what ended up happening for me is I started smoking wax.
Yeah.
And that is a lot more intense. And I was taking bong rips maybe 3, 4, 5 times a day. Like, I'd wake up, rip a bong rip of wax.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The crack of weed.
Yeah. And I was told by these very intelligent, very high people that it was better for me because you're smoking less and it's a more concentrated form of THC.
God.
I did not know it was basically like heroin.
It's heroin, yeah.
And so I was so high all the time that I actually don't remember a few years of my life that much because I was just
I can see that.
high. And I remember going on a vacation. I didn't realize it was a problem until I went on a vacation with my family and I didn't have any.
Yes.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
And suddenly I couldn't eat. I was getting sweats and I was a bitch. I hated everyone. Everything was irritating. I couldn't and I'm a introvert. I like to read and kind of just sit with myself and, look at the birds. And I couldn't do that. I was antsy and I was sweaty and I was just like, wow, I have a fucking problem.
Yeah.
I have a huge issue.
Yep.
Because for me, I was raised in a family where you can drink alcohol kind of whenever at a party and stuff. And it was monitored. But so I was kind of, I knew how much I could drink without getting super drunk. And so that wasn't the issue. It was like weed and then trying, party drugs like Raven Molly and stuff and then uppers. And so I think it's interesting, depending on your depression and how you feel about yourself, what substances you take to make yourself feel whole or really good.
Definitely.
And so for me, it eventually morphed into uppers as well. And I find it interesting that what you're saying, Chris, of like how alcohol hit you is how it like uppers would hit me. And maybe for you too, James, it sounds like.
Yeah.
Chemically speaking, like also the first time I ever like tried weed, I got angry.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, tell me about that.
Yeah, and it made me mad. It actually made me almost enraged at the people around me.
Wow.
Like I went into the space that you went into without it.
Yeah.
Where I was
so
just
funny.
like, everyone around me needs to shut the fuck up and leave me alone because I can't deal with any of your shit right now.
You had a bad strain,
It's
man.
funny because like I would
I
take a
tried
little bit with
indica
theater.
and I tried sativa. Two different occasions.
Too bad.
Both times led me to extreme thoughts of anger. It was insane.
Sativa, I could see. Sativa kind of makes me a little bit, for sure, edgy sometimes.
And if you're expecting like to be relaxed and giggly and you get angry, it's very
that's
confusing
very
when you're
confusing.
on.
That sucks.
I think it was
I'm
absolutely
relaxed and angry.
I'm so fucking angry, but I can't not tense up.
Turn on the TV.
I think though the more interesting part that came from that also was just that I didn't try anything until like way later, and then I was like, oh no, this actually kind of helped.
Yeah,
it was one of the methods that I used to get off of antidepressants.
That's what marijuana became for me, was because finally at one point in that story of my life, I decided I almost destroyed my whole life with cocaine. I almost destroyed everything. My marriage, my life.
Yeah.
My bank account was empty.
Guaranteed empty.
Yeah, I mean, always. It was, the spending is crazy, but that is definitely a rich person's drug. And so I decided to totally get off of it. It's time to quit. And I had started smoking a little bit because I started smoking weed when I decided to get off the opiates. It all went in like layers. I decided to get off of all this shit.
Well, it had also just become legalized in California around that time.
Yeah,
so
right around that. Yeah, so it was a perfect time. So when I quit doing the blow, I quit drinking whiskey. Marijuana was it was medicine for me. I mean, it really, like, I could smoke a joint and now I don't want any of those things, and that was incredible for me.
Interestingly enough, I'd smoked weed a couple times in like college and it was whatever. And then when I started smoking with my boyfriend, I was coming off antidepressants. And he was like, we need like, and I did it wrong, guys. I did not get the help of a doctor to come off my antidepressants. I did it on my own. So I weaned myself, quote unquote.
Same here.
And what happened for me, I don't know if you guys have experienced this, but I would get brain zaps, is what they call them. And it basically feels like there's a lightning bolt that goes through your brain. And it is your neurons, like things realigning with the chemicals. There's a whole science behind it. I don't know it. But so, and I would have these rages because all of this time where I'd been on like antidepressants, and now all these feelings were coming back to me that I hadn't really experienced in a while because my antidepressants weren't working and they were suppressing. And so then I was raging like throwing shit across the room, which is not my personality. And so then I would get high. And then I stopped going to college. And then I went too far.
Yeah.
So this is, I think, a good example of where something that can be helpful for one person is too much for another, and you really can't compare yourself to other people.
Absolutely.
You know?
Because while marijuana did help me, it was a very specific, those were specific circumstances, and I have seen marijuana, as much as I am a fan of legalized marijuana and using marijuana as a medicine the way it should be used, I will say I have witnessed plenty of people the burnout stereotype where weed has totally ruined their life. They get up in the morning and smoke and don't do anything for the rest of the day. And there's a difference between using it for pain and anxiety to help you live your full life, rather than using it to forget about the fact that you're just sitting around in your sweatpants all day long every single day playing video games. You got to get out there and edibles have helped a lot. I don't smoke weed in the morning for sure. Like that's a nighttime thing for me whenever I'm ready to like shut the brain off. Yeah. But an edible in the morning, I will admit, that helps for sure.
In what way?
Just anxiety. And I think all the addictions that I used to have, I'm getting to the point now in my life where I can actually go with nothing in my body, and that's awesome. Crazy. And it feels really good. I'm waking up every morning, feeling great. That's the funny part, like Rock River was saying earlier about how you feel during the day. It's really interesting as an addict what you're willing to put up with. Waking up it got to the point where like I couldn't wake up before 2. For sure. Or else it was death. Like rolling around, dying.
Is it because you went to bed so late?
So I would go to bed at 5 a.m. and I would, I would be doing all of these things until 5 a.m. Yeah. And I think that was a lot of, I didn't want to go to sleep because of the depression. That was a lot of anxiety and depression that I was dealing with my demons every night, so to speak. So
you're saying it's interesting what you're willing to put up with as an addict in terms of like how much you put yourself through.
How much you put yourself through, because I'd wake up the next day, death mode, and then the hangover would usually last until sometimes 7 p.m., and then you'd crack it back open and get it all going back again, and then that... then whenever I got a job that wasn't nighttime hours, I left bartending, began the office job that I have with you guys now. I was still trying to carry it on. I was just being hungover at work now. And now, you remember.
I still specifically have a story when James and I first started working together where he showed up to work and I noticed he had some Coke residue around his nose.
In the office.
And I just went, "Hey, James."
Yep.
And he was just like, "Oh shit."
If you don't know you're an addict, I would say that's an alarm. I'd say that's a notification.
When I gotta come up to you and be like, "You got some booger sugar going on there."
Yep. At
so
the
for
office.
both of you guys, when was let's start with Chris. When was the time when you were like, "Okay, this is becoming a problem for me"?
It was definitely one episode in particular where I had maybe like 3/4 or a full bottle of scotch that night. Can't remember which. The party was over. I was still drinking. I was still the only one drinking. And I sat there for a minute as like I was like single and hating everybody, especially myself. And this couple had like basically like taken over my bedroom at one point. And I was like, "I'm going for a walk." And I walked out of my own home, completely wasted. Like this was like this is getting close to blackout level. And I had walked down the staircase somehow without falling, and I literally got lost.
Man.
I walked the streets of the town I was living in, just lost.
Yeah.
And I didn't, I finally, like, I got, like, sitting on a fence at, like, 5 or 6 in the morning. The sun was coming up. I was still drunk. I sat there, and I stared at the sun for a minute. I was just like, this is not how this evening should have ended.
Right.
This should not have ended this way.
That has happened to me before, by the way. I wound up staying late with some of the bartenders one night, and we had free booze, basically. And I literally woke up in Santa Monica walking down a street. And I didn't know how, and my phone was dead.
Oh my God.
It was the worst day of my whole life. It was like 8 a.m., which, by the way, you and I talked about this, where when the sun starts coming up and people are all going to work and you are still like blackout, it is the worst. I will never have that feeling again in my life. I'll never do it to myself. Never, ever again. That is, you feel like the shame.
There's so much shame and guilt and disgust
and who am I? Yes. I don't know how people do it. I was never the type that I had friends who would be like, look, the sun's coming up, time to make another drink. And it was like, oh my God, no, I want to go like jump off a building.
It's time for sangria.
Yes.
I had friends who were like that. So yours was when you had been, your moment was when you are watching the sun come up, lost and drunk.
Yes. Nice.
And then what was yours, James?
God, rock bottom was just, I mean, I hit a lot of rock bottoms, to be honest. There were a lot of nights where things were just exploding because of what I was doing, and I'm blackout drunk, and I'm fucking up my whole world. It didn't end there. It honestly just came to I just had a moment of clarity at some point where
seeing all the different times.
I think I was I was doing like a key bump at 3 p.m. to, and I was like, this has got to go. And that is where I will tell you, after 3 years of every single day intake of cocaine, I quit cold fucking turkey, which I don't know if I would necessarily recommend it. Maybe see a doctor. Yeah. I never looked back. Like it ended there, and I've never gone back.
Like?
To be honest, not a lot.
For your
I thought that I was ready for a war. Like I was ready for my body to go through the whole thing, and God willing, I don't know what happened. The universe, I guess, was right there with me when I decided to quit. Because I didn't. I mean, the first week, I would say the worst is when you're coming off of cocaine, you get really depressed. The depression is bad, but luckily I was already so depressed already.
So it wasn't like
And but I'd say if you're gonna quit, just line something up for yourself. I really dove deep into this project that I've been working on for the past 2 years, and that replaced a lot of that, and I just got my hands busy, and I thank God I never really experienced a stupor withdrawal or DTs or anything like that. And if you put a line of blow in front of me right now, I would say thank you. That's very courteous of you because that's very expensive, but I'm not going to do it. Go ahead.
And how about for you? What was your healing process once you decided to stop?
Well,
did you have withdrawals?
I mean, at that point, I didn't really have withdrawals. I had a strange sort of like, I don't know what it was in particular. I know that I started at that point. That was when I went on my fitness kick. And I lost like 60 pounds. Yep. And I felt the best in my life at that point. And then it came back, and then lost it again, and then came back. So it's been an ongoing thing where usually when I hit rock bottom, the next step is I go head first into recovery of like transforming myself into the person that I want to be for like 6 months, and then I destroy myself again. So in terms of like, I don't think I have any addictions at this moment other than just like food is still a horrible comfort. And it really, I don't know, it came to a head ultimately the last time was just I got tired of being tired.
Yeah.
And there was a quote that I was told recently that like stuck to my head, and I can't believe that I'm not remembering it right now. It was basically that the healthy wear a crown that only the ill can see.
Interesting. Oh, yeah. That's a good way of putting it.
It's something that exists not only in just like the medically ill, the mentally ill also, as well as anybody who has just been there in that low point of, I have nothing else but this one thing.
Yeah.
And when you start living for one thing, whether it's, whatever it is, it honestly, you need to diversify.
And that's and I really agree with that, because that is one thing. If you do know someone who's addicted, I know it's hard. It was hard to have sympathy for certain people, because you say you're doing it to yourself. Why don't you just quit? But when I was super addicted to everything, I would look at people who didn't, like my wife, Shelby, has really no vices. She drinks coffee. That's probably her only vice. She does not love drinking. She doesn't love drugs. She doesn't even, she just doesn't. It's just not part of her. And I was always so like, God, how do you do this? Like, I'm so jealous of that. I would love to be that healthy. Yeah. And so when people are addicted, they're probably looking at healthy people wishing that they could be there, to be honest. And that's, it's a sad state.
And we're lucky because our addictions and the things that we've gone through have never fallen to a point where we're homeless.
Yeah.
And we literally physically can't, without hospitalization, get off of it. Because now, again, we were discussing earlier what works for some people. For me, also going cold turkey off of smoking very heavily, and I just worked all the time, and I went to dog walking, and I moved out of the situation I was in. So walking dogs all the time, kind of detoxing from being in a situation where everybody was doing the same drug. It was helpful just to completely get out of that. But some people need professional help. They need to go to Narcotics Anonymous or AA, or they have to be hospitalized. When do you think that is something that is necessary?
If you find yourself knowing that you're destroying yourself and just really, really can't stop, I would say it's time. I think I was lucky enough to help myself out of it, and I think the three of us we were strong enough to pull ourselves out of stuff and realize how bad we were fucking up. But I think some people, again, like my brother, I feel like he didn't have a lot to look at besides what he was going through, which is a lot. You gotta. I don't know how to put it, but yeah, like if you find yourself with nothing to turn to, it's time for professional help.
And I think I want to stress, and I know you didn't mean it this way, James. It's not about strength, like us being strong enough to pull ourselves out of, because some people can't, and it's not because you're not strong.
Right? No,
we all just had circumstances that for whatever reason we were lucky enough that we weren't addicted enough, or we had people
backing us up
to help us. If you have nothing and you have so much shame and you have so much, and you don't have family or friends to help you, I mean, that's when I think you're right. Like we need people to help us.
Definitely.
Regardless if you're an addict or you're depressed, or just even if you're fully healthy, you still need people to help you.
Especially if you've developed a community around the addiction that you have. Like it's when you find yourself familiarized. And you feel like if you stop drinking and you can't be fun anymore, and you can't be hanging out with the cool kids, then there's not a whole lot of incentive mentally to yourself where that's what you want to do. You don't want to sober up because you're the fun guy. Yeah. Come on.
It becomes a part of your identity. It became a part of mine. I was the party guy. I was the guy who loved cocaine and alcohol, and everyone knew that. And if you needed a guy to do blow with, I was your dude, and that it becomes a part of your identity. And so I know that can be very hard to strip. You're stripping a part of your identity. Now, those people who thought you were so cool for this thing aren't going to think you're cool anymore.
Because they're dealing with their own demons.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
All at that point, it just looks like they're getting abandoned.
Yeah.
And that's a big thing that really interferes with the healing process, is that fear of abandonment. So that is when in finding professional help, it's also finding support groups
Yeah.
for you. And if you're in a relationship with somebody and you're trying to sober up, there are groups out there for them.
Mm-hmm.
They also need as much help as you do, because they're having to deal with what you're going through, and they care about you, and they know that you're going through hell, and they can't do anything to help themselves. They can't do anything to help you.
Yeah, and remember, it's your body, not theirs.
Yeah.
You know,
no one can know.
No one can know
what you're going through exactly.
Right.
You have to take responsibility.
Yeah, and you got to take it seriously. I mean, that's, I didn't take it seriously at all, and I was the fun drug dude, and I thought that was so much fun and so cool.
Yeah.
Look, you literally, there could be mortal consequences and I've seen it, and it's serious.
Yeah. For your brother, do you think that a huge part of it was his depression and anxiety that he was trying to cover up?
Absolutely. Yeah, his dad was a pretty rough dude, Louisiana man, and my mom left his father when my brother was around 8 or 9 because he threw my mother across the kitchen, basically. And so they got out of that, and then my brother was my mom was a single mom for a long time, trying to raise my brother and trying to make ends meet. And yeah, he was my half brother, so there was a lot that I didn't see in his life, and I was born when he was 10 years old. But yeah, there was a lot of depression, a lot of anxiety, a mountain of suppressed feelings, which is, again, I got to go back to suppression is a killer. Suppression is cancer almost. If you're feeling things, that's where that professional help really comes into play, because if you have no one to talk to about your feelings, suppression is very bad. I would ward against suppression all the time.
So this is a question for both of you guys, because you're dudes. And you've probably experienced toxic masculinity. How do you recommend if somebody's out there and he doesn't know how to, how do you talk about your, how do you find someone who's safe enough to talk about your feelings with? How do you do that?
The most masculine thing is being a dude who doesn't give a shit about if you think he's masculine or not, in my opinion. And, I think we're so blessed right now to be living in 2019, 2018, this whole thing has cropped up where therapy is cool now, and that is amazing. That's therapy is good. We're all just realizing it. I was anti-therapy whenever I was like a 20-year-old dude. I was like, well, you got to go talk to somebody about your feelings, and now I see, yes, you do. You really do, man. Yeah, man. I mean, think about the manly, a Navy SEAL needs therapy more than anyone, right? Like, the manliest dude you can think of he needs therapy. Everyone needs therapy. Everyone needs to talk.
Oh, I do have speaking of therapy, fun little announcement. I'm getting a new therapist on Wednesday.
Congratulations.
Nice. So I'm going to have that little first meeting conversation thing, and hopefully it'll work out. So cool on that. And I'm going to talk about the podcast a bit and be like, so, I want some opinions. But I think that getting therapy is easily one of the best things that we can do as a society.
Yeah. I've heard with a new therapist, you beat up the biggest dude on the first day, right?
Yeah. Is that how that whole works?
No way, that's prison.
But yeah, no, as far as the toxic masculinity thing, I don't know. I was raised by women.
Right.
So,
but in society,
in society, absolutely.
Yeah.
But I had a unique perspective in that I was always raised with the perspective of talking about your feelings is the most secure masculine thing to do, because the alternative is you bottle it up and you become a raging psychopath.
Absolutely.
Or worse, you just don't ever learn from it. You don't ever advance.
And here's the thing, just because I listened to a lot of TED Talks. So you could say I'm a professional. No. Yeah. But feelings sometimes, logically, I can know that my feelings don't make sense or are not logical and they feel stupid, but I'm still experiencing a very strong emotion. So I have to take a time and either discuss it with the person. I do this with my best friend or my romantic partner, is you're like, hey, I'm really upset that this happened. I know logically that might be a silly feeling that I'm having, but this is how I'm feeling. Can we talk about it? And then we fix it, and then the feelings go away.
Yep.
And so I think just knowing that as a human, you're going to have feelings, whether you're man or woman. It's just part of our... Suppressing it doesn't make you more anything.
No, not at all. You know, I grew up in Mississippi where, that was talking to your dude friends about, you know, my redneck buddies about my feelings. Yeah, I mean, it was you didn't really do
Culturally, that was basically shunned.
Yeah,
if
absolutely.
You got,
yeah, and it does suck. And, you know, that leads to I know a lot of those guys who are still just kind of stuck in the same place forever because they were never really able to express themselves, I feel like, you know. Yeah.
And then you have drugs, and then you get to feel feelings and be fun. And
Yep.
It's kind of, it's...
Yeah.
So now that all of us are pretty much, like, sober, I would say.
Yeah.
I mean, like... How do you ultimately feel about your experiences that you dealt with? Is it something that ultimately you can feel freer talking about now? Or is it something that is still like a deep shame that really holds you back?
It's not a deep shame for me. It was for a while, but I'm ready to talk about it now because... I do truly feel that I have conquered it. And not only am I not ashamed of my past anymore, I'm prideful in the fact that I was able to, I feel like I won. Like I won a war.
I think it is the advancement that does a lot of times matter most. Is when you can look back and go, yeah, I was in a very dark place then.
Yep.
I got through it.
Yeah.
I may be in a dark place now, or I may be in a dark place in the future.
Yeah.
But that does not mean that I am incapable of overcoming it.
I tell myself it's almost a daily feeling, to be honest. Still, it's pretty fresh that I've been working out every day for the past year and a half or so. Yeah. I had gotten to the point where I was really heavy into my addictions. I got up to like a weight that I had never hit before because I was done with the gym. I couldn't go to the gym. I felt way too terrible. So now the fact that I wake up in the morning feeling awesome and I have coffee and I go to work and I go to the gym and I'm making more money than I've ever made and my projects are all like actually taking off and coming to fruition, and this is all, it's amazing. It's an amazing feeling. And I look in the mirror almost every single day and I say, you used to be stuck on the couch doing blow and not being able to stop, and now look at you. Look at you. Like,
that's that positive
won.
Self-talk,
yes,
man.
Yeah, you have to. You've got to talk to yourself.
Even if you're faking it till you're making it, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
I just want to put out a little note there for those of you who have maybe won and then lost again.
Yeah.
And then won again, and now you feel like maybe you're losing again. That doesn't mean that you're actually losing. Every time you go through, it's a learning process, it's a growing process, and a healing process. I feel like that sometimes just with depression in general, where I'm like, hey, I'm not depressed, and I'm getting through it, I'm healing, and then I get hit with depression, and I feel almost guilty. You know, and I know that happens with addiction. I went from being a healthy person to being somebody who lived in a bad situation, who did too much drugs, who lived in a healthy situation, who went back with living with people who were doing bad things. And it happens sometimes, and that doesn't make you weak, and it doesn't make you a bad person. No. So just putting that out there.
It just makes you a person.
It's just...
I would like to wrap up our little conversation, I think, with probably the silliest example that I have from the very first addiction I ever had, caffeine.
Yeah.
I was in high school, and it was during the summertime, that I went on a trip to Missouri with my then girlfriend to spend time with her family. And I got there, and nobody there drank caffeine. I was on, at that point in my life, like a 6-pack of Dr. Pepper a day.
Damn.
I was drinking the approximate consumption of maybe 4, 5, 6. Actually, it's more like 6 cups of coffee a day, easily. Yeah. And I went cold turkey.
Oh yeah,
For
the sweats.
Ouch.
I had the
headache.
sweats. I had the headaches.
The worst
I
headaches.
felt the worst pain in my entire life during that experience. And later on, that addiction basically got me to a point where I now can drink coffee and I could probably take a nap afterwards.
Yeah.
Because it just does nothing. My
Yeah.
brain is permanently changed
Yeah.
from like the amount of caffeine I was consuming. So you want to talk lingering effects? There you go. Coffee does
Absolutely.
nothing for me anymore.
So guys, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much, James, for sharing with us.
Yay.
And just another reminder that we are not professionals. This was just a discussion. If
Hell
you
no.
do need professional help, we will have some links at the bottom.
We
of
absolutely will.
NA
And follow us on Instagram at HAYHU Podcast. Like our Facebook page. And if you want to send us something directly, go ahead and email mailbag@howareyoholdingup.com. Also, another announcement, we are making a subreddit that we will be posting the episodes to and having discussions available.
Yes.
You can post all sorts of things. We're just going to get some moderators up. Stay tuned to the Instagram. We will be posting news on that and the Facebook as it develops.
Mm-hmm.
And also, James, you want to plug anything?
Yes, go to iTunes, Film History, the history of film, with Jimmy Deloy and Sailor Dev. Those are your two co-hosts of that show, where we dive deep into the history of films and television and Hollywood in general.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's a really fun show. We just got we just got some news. It's really cool. I'll say it later. But go check it out. iTunes, it's under Skitbags Radio on iTunes, and it's
We'll
just
link it
listen.
below.
Well, it's all linked in the description. I listened to the episode on the history of the Hollywood sign.
Did you like it?
Yeah, it's some pretty good stuff, guys. So go and enjoy some Skitbags entertainment over there.
Yeah.
So
Next week's episode is about Marilyn Monroe.
Fascinating stuff, actually.
Yeah.
Some dark
Yes.
stuff.
Oh yeah.
I can't wait to hear
You
it.
talk about addiction.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
seriously.
Yeah, baby.
Yeah.
So as always,
Don't tell us to just get over it.